Today we're going to share some simple strategies that help students truly understand equivalent fractions and the math behind the rule. A lot of the time we focus on how to create equivalent fractions instead of what equivalent fractions even mean in the first place. This approach can make it difficult for students to remember the rule because there's nothing for them to connect or relate to. Instead, we should start with what equivalence really means and model it physically or visually so students can see that equivalent fractions represent the same amount and that multiplying the numerator and denominator by the same number doesn't change the value. The first big idea students need to understand is what a written fraction represents. A fraction shows how one whole is split into equal parts and how many of those parts you have. The second key idea to emphasize is that we can only compare and create fractions when they refer to the same whole. We need to use that one whole to compare or create equivalent fractions. This leads to our next big idea, which is that the same amount can be represented with multiple different fractions. While 1/2 and 2/4 here are written differently, they still represent the same amount. When we have two fractions written differently that represent the same amount, we then move to the next key idea, which is that fractions that represent the same amount are called equivalent fractions. You want to emphasize this visually by showing that even though each whole is divided into a different number of equal pieces, they all have the same amount shaded. Let students notice the pattern by purposefully using visuals and written fractions so that they can see that the amount stays the same while the numerators and denominators change in a particular way. Let's try this out in practice. Give them a word problem like this one, and provide fraction bars or use printed fraction drawings. Observe how they're using the fraction bars. Remember, letting them work on their own first will help you understand their current thinking. If you let them draw these fractions, make sure they use the same size to represent one whole, and make sure each whole is divided into equal-sized pieces. After you let them work, make sure to visually show that they are the same size by stacking 1/3 and 2/6. Once you stack the two bars, emphasize again that they show the same amount and write the corresponding math expression of 1/3 equals 2/6. Now draw their attention to the written fractions by asking them, what do you notice about these two fractions? For 1/3, the whole is divided into 3 equal pieces, and we take one piece. For 2/6, the same whole is divided into 6 equal pieces, and we take 2 of them. Emphasize that when we doubled the denominator, the pieces got smaller, and doubling the numerator took the correct number of smaller pieces to match that same amount. Reinforce these ideas until students are comfortable linking the meaning of equivalent fractions to their written forms. Help students notice the key ideas by consistently showing that equivalent fractions represent the same amount and have the same relationship between numerators and denominators. Then, once they're comfortable, ask them to create equivalent fractions and use images so they can more easily see the whole and how both the denominators and numerators change. Equivalent fractions become much clearer when students see how the numerators and denominators change together while the amount stays the same. With the right context and visuals, the concept becomes intuitive. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And please leave a comment letting us know what you'd like to see next from us. Thanks for watching.